everyone, this is Christopher Brower here with Daily Motor, and today we're driving the 2021 BMW X5 45e. Now, if you're unfamiliar with BMW names, then it is very easy to be unfamiliar with them because they're a little bit hard to remember. 45e means that this is a plug-in hybrid. So up front we have a 3-liter inline-six that makes 282 horsepower, and somewhere in front, behind, or in the middle, we have a 107 horsepower electric motor that aids in producing 386 horsepower, 389 horsepower, something like that. So we've got almost 400 horsepower in this car and over 440 foot-pounds of torque. So it does pack a little bit of an oomph, and you'll see that when we go out on our drive. This particular example is around 81 grand, mostly because of the $5,500 M Sport pack that gets us these big 21-inch wheels, big M brakes, a little bit different front fascia, and an M steering wheel inside as well. I love the gray on this car. It's a very deep color. You see lots of blue metallic through here in the sunlight, a little bit of green as well. We have a nice ivory colored interior in this thing. Let's go ahead and step inside. You can see we have the crystal shifter on this car. Lots of cool stuff. You can tell where BMW's money is when you step inside any of their high-end SUVs. This interior is absolutely gorgeous and leaps and bounds better than any that I've seen in any of their recent cars, though I haven't been in a 7 Series in a few years. So this is the nicest I've seen so far. Stepping around here to the back, this is pretty cool. So we have a button here for our top half of our lift gate, and then we have another button for the bottom half. I have a buddy with an E70 X5, and there's just a little handle here, which, you know, this thing weighs nothing, so it's easy to put up and down. But BMW has aided you in being even more lazy because there's a button. The button puts it up as well. Pretty hilarious. Back here, this houses the charger. There's a shock on this, which keeps it up for you. Pretty nice, so it doesn't go flopping down when you're trying to get your charger out. Tow hook's down there as well. All of the normal stuff. First aid kit. Quite a good amount of rear cargo space, and I like how BMW has stuck with this sort of split tailgate design on all of the generations of X5. It's cool they haven't taken that away from us. I also think it's funny that even though this is the E-Drive car, it still has these big aggressive exhaust tips on the back, even though they're not actually real. There's smaller ones in there if you can see those. Also have a towing package on this. Charlie just uploaded a video, if you scroll down slightly, of him towing a motorcycle with this. So if you're interested in towing capacity of the xDrive 45e X5, make sure to check that out as well. All right, well, enough of that. Here's where you charge it. Enough of that. Let's go ahead and take this BMW X5 xDrive 45e M Sport out on the road and see what it's like. Do have a nice little charging tray for your mobile device there, and this car does have wireless Apple CarPlay, so the two about even each other out as far as battery goes. I love BMW's chime. It might be my favorite out of any chime of any car. It's so relaxing, calming, and just very, very nice. We do have this very odd looking trim that is textured. It probably barely shows up on camera because it is very, very weird looking, but bent down. I don't want to blow out my headphone user's ears. All right, so let's go ahead and take this thing out for a drive. Shifter feels very nice. Typical BMW shifter's been the same for years and years. You can see we've got our electric range down there on the right. With about 3/4 of a charge, about 19 miles. I want to say that gives you, what, just over 25 miles on a full charge, so not too bad. Let's see, we're taking off here in electric. We're still in EV mode. You can give this thing up to about 40% throttle before it shifts over. Then it is a seamless transition over to our inline six, which is turbocharged. I don't know if I mentioned that. So you've got a turbocharged inline six backed by an electric motor. And this is an upgrade from the F15, the previous generation X5 eDrive, because that only had a 2-liter inline 4. So we're up about 40 horsepower from that with this inline six, and I think the electric motor is about 20 horsepower more powerful. So we're up on power quite a bit from the previous generation, so that is always good. This thing feels really great, and even spec'd out as this one is with all the bells and whistles, M Sport Pack, crystal shift knob, Harman Kardon, comes in at about 80 grand. But you do get a $7,500 tax credit with this car. So if you are to get a base model of this car and you consider the tax credit, it's actually cheaper than a base model rear-wheel drive 40i X5. So something to consider. I feel like at that point you might as well just get the hybrid. Now, if you don't want to waste your range here, you can see I've already used 2 miles of range. You can click your trusty little sport button down here, and that will lock the car into its gas powertrain. So then if you want to use your 17 miles of electricity to drive around the city or something like that, you have the ability to do so. Or if you'd like to be complete opposite of that, you can click the electric mode and drive this thing in EV only. So that's flat out. It's only about 100 horsepower. It takes a while for it to get up to speed, but there you go. We're going to leave it in sport mode here. Quite a bit more power. Oh yeah. Now, even though this is quite a heavy car, it weighs about 5,600 pounds, it still feels nice and nimble, and BMW always does a good job of making their heavy cars feel light. Something with the steering and whatnot, and the steering is always better in non-M cars as well. So this car does a good job of that. It doesn't feel heavy, even though it weighs, well, more than a Challenger Hellcat, which is very heavy. But good mark there for BMW. The car does not feel it. Being that this is a plug-in hybrid, the brake pedal does sometimes feel a little bit weird because of the let's say regen so I don't mess it up, because of the regen braking system. So you do sacrifice that if you choose this over just a normal gas-powered car, but to be honest with you, it does not bother me at all. Good power there out of the corner. Even though this inline six has under 300 horsepower, it still has plenty of power to get this big 6,000 pound SUV out of the way. And if you combine it with the electric motor, as I said earlier, it's almost 400 horsepower and over 440 foot-pounds of torque, so plenty there as well. Now, I want to move on to the infotainment system because BMW always way over-engineers their infotainment, which isn't always a bad thing. So if we click, actually I've done that wrong. If we click here on BMW, you can see we've got our normal split screen split into 3 things. And yes, it's recognizing my hand movements there because this car has gesture control, meaning you can control the audio on your infotainment just by using your hands, and we'll get to that in a minute. So basically how the gesture control works is you use your finger as you would a volume knob, and you can go like this. It'll turn your... Same to go volume down, turns your music up and down. And then if you'd like to pause your music, you can go like that. It'll pause the music and it'll mute it as well. I don't know how you then make it play again. I've just been pressing play. There's some sort of gesture to make it play again, but I don't know what that is. Additionally, if you'd like to skip a song, you can go like that, which is pretty cool. It's actually quite satisfying because it does that little bing bong noise as well when you skip a song, so that is fun. I'm going to wait till we stop to show you the rest of the infotainment because it's quite intense and I don't want to crash into the wall on this test route. Oh, I've forgotten to mention, we're not on the normal Daily Motor test route today because it's under construction even more so than it was before. It's completely torn apart. Half of the roads are blocked off. Oh yeah. You can still test out the cornering though on this back road that I like to do spirited drives on. But yes, the Daily Motor test route is under construction, so Charlie and I have been having to get creative with where we're going on our Daily Motor test drive reviews, but here we are. I don't mind this route. I actually quite like it. Up here in a little bit, we'll get to some even more twistier roads, so we'll be able to test out this X5 handling-wise up there. All right, so we're already in sport mode. Let's go ahead and push the gear selector over to manual. Get second gear. Very reactive shift paddles. Not a bad feel through that brake pedal. Though under heavy braking, it is a little bit stressy. Ooh, a lot of tire squeal through there. It could have something to do with this freshly paved surface, though. It is nimble on its feet, though, this big monster X5. For a 6,000 pound car, that is not bad at all. I'm very impressed with the way this drives. Kudos to BMW for making this hybrid SUV still fun to drive, and I'm so happy that they ditched that silly little 4-cylinder that was in the F15, and they've given us this inline-6 for the G05. Very satisfied with that. Lots of good driving dynamics on this car. Alright, let's go ahead and put this into adaptive mode, meaning we will have combined power from our electric motor and our gas motor, and let's hit it. And there's 60. It takes about 5 seconds. It really launches and pulls this thing. I'm so impressed with how sporty this car feels, because I went into this not expecting that at all. I was like, oh, a big hybrid all-wheel drive SUV, it's not going to feel sporty at all. But it does. It totally does. BMW has absolutely nailed it for making this car feel sporty, but also livable. I mean, obviously, you know, that's the main purpose of this car, is being able to be a comfortable daily driver, but it is also able to double as a sports SUV, or excuse me, sports activity vehicle. If BMW is watching, I do know your correct verbiage for that. I really like this car. I mean, I properly like this car. If I was in the market for an SUV of this size, I think I would have this, and I wouldn't have the X5M. I wouldn't have the naturally aspirated 6-cylinder car. I wouldn't have the rear-wheel drive car. I would have this one. This is like the best of both worlds. You can drive it around in electric mode. You can drive it in hybrid mode. You can drive it in sport mode. It's got so many different personalities, and it does such a good job implementing all of them into your driving experience. I really love this car. The interior is so nice. It's so comfortable. Everything's leather. They certainly haven't skimped on the leather in here. We have a black headliner. We have a huge panoramic moonroof here. It has everything that you would need, and you can tow with it as well. I properly like this car, and I want one now. This is one of the few cars that I've emerged from wanting. We also have active lane keep assist, which behaves in a very German way. It doesn't necessarily drive the car for you like a Hyundai or a Kia would, but it gets very irritated at you if you're not driving properly, and makes that clear by vibrating the steering wheel and essentially taking it out of your hands. In some situations, it's very adamant on where it wants to go, and it's going to go there whether you like it or not. Which in some situations is a good thing, but if you're going through a construction zone, perhaps, it does make it a little bit scary when you're trying to go over certain lines and the car is trying to steer you into a bunch of orange barrels. But you can get rid of that by simply pressing one of these buttons on here and turning it off, and then you don't have to worry about that anymore. Alright everyone, and we're actually going to end today's video with a tour of the infotainment system, because I didn't want to drive off the road while I was driving, because it is a little bit complex. There's a lot going on in this infotainment. The main menu, we've got it split into 3 screens here. As you can see, it keeps recognizing my hands. I should probably stop. On the left side, we've got the BMW in-house navigation, and on the right hand side we have what song is playing, as well as the Bluetoothed device in the bottom right hand corner. On the left here, we've got our phone controls here. We've got Apple CarPlay going there, so that's what that says. Navigation puts you into the nav screen, pretty self-explanatory. If you go into car, this is where it starts to get complex. We have the actual car that we're in over here on the right. That's pretty cool that they do that. Into our settings, opens a whole nother menu here. We've got general settings for, you know, things with the gesture control, touchpad, pop-ups, trailer mode, all of that sort of thing. I did that wrong. Drive modes, exterior lighting, setting, walk-up lights, things like that. Displays, interior lighting for different colors of ambient lighting. Right now I've got it set to lilac because lilac is the best for ambient lighting. Seat controls, climate control, key button settings. There's so much you can configure on these cars. we could be here all day looking at this infotainment, and I feel bad for the old people that buy these cars because they're just simply not interested in all of this. And then they have to sit there at the dealership while the salesman with the spiky hair explains how to use it all, and then they forget about it as soon as they drive off the lot. So yes, that is a very, very short and small tour of the infotainment on this X5. But with that being said, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little video of the X5 here. I know I certainly enjoyed driving this thing. I like it a lot more than I thought I would. So, all right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for watching. This has been Christopher Brower with Daily Motor, and as always, drive on.